formation. He didn't think peace was important enough to mention in the functioning of capitalism. I mean, Marx, go away and rethink it. So that's why I'm doing a commentary on Das Kapital, to say where he got it wrong.
There is an excuse. He was in the early stage of capitalism.
I still think he could have done better homework, but there we are, you know. He tried, at least. I mean, he was doing his best. Okay, so... and I think that I've said this in, you know, other talks and things. I think my daughter, Sophia, who stood for a young woman trying to find wisdom in the world, she was demonized by the state of the world we're living in. Conflict-ridden. She couldn't look at social media. She couldn't stand rows going on in her social environment. People bullying, and you know, and it all got to her. And I don't think it's just her. I think there are cases of, there's a huge mental health crisis going on in the world, in Britain, in France, in Europe, so-called developed countries, because people can't cope with all this conflict. It eats the soul away. So the logic of peace is like, it's a branch of medicine, actually. The first thing you do as a doctor is you calm the patient, you reassure them, you know, get them to be at peace so you can then diagnose and treat. If they're thrashing around the bed, screaming and fighting with other patients, you can't do anything. At the moment, we've got a planet where everyone's fighting and screaming like a madhouse. And I just wanted to mention something else. So how do we transcend these opposites? Where do we go? So fortunately, my dear friend David Lorimer, publishes this Paradigm Explorer for the Scientific and Medical Network. So talking about medicine, I've been fascinated in the history of medicine. I taught a course at the University of Oxford on the history of religion of medicine that was pioneering. I looked at medicine in all the different religions, and healing is sacred to all the religions, you know. In the ancient Greek of Hippocrates, it was under Asclepius, who's the son of Apollo. We're in the room of Apollo, right? But we've come a long way from that. We've now ended up in a world where bombing hospitals can become part of military objectives, on the supposition that Hamas have got tunnels underneath, which there's been no proof for, by the way, no evidence, no indication of any truth behind that. So
even one person walking into a hospital that is Hamas makes it a legal target.
Well, this is false. This
insane.
is yeah, it is insane, literally. So what do we do when we have insanity taking over the halls of decision making?
Straight jackets.
If only. Yeah. If only. Sure. I mean, one way we can go is to thinkers like Jeffrey Kripal, Kripal, who's professor of religion and philosophy in America, and whose new book, How to Think Impossibly, is reviewed by David Lorimer in this latest edition of Paradigm Explorer. And what Jeffrey Kripal is saying is that the problem is the materialist paradigm that we've inherited from scientism, which says that all the spiritual stuff is false and only materialism matters. And what Jeffrey's saying, no, latest research show that's not true. Dreams, precognition, telepathy, these are actual facts, and we have to be aware of that. And they're part of the healing process too. You know, we can be healed on a spiritual level. And by the way, my review of the history of homeopathy book, Sane Asylums by Jerry Cantor, is in this edition as well. I did a detailed review. And a review of another book in French on the history of homeopathy. And Hahnemann was a genius who believed in a different form of spiritual healing. He was a Freemason, interestingly enough, and a philosopher who's buried in Paris. And there's a lot of indications that consciousness is an ally in the healing process. It's not just giving the pill, it's enlisting the self-healing process which is in the patient for their own healing through their own consciousness. And what you have to do is plug their individual consciousness into the divine matrix, which is the cosmic consciousness or the collective consciousness. Somehow homeopathy does that. You give them a little bit of the poison, and the body somehow goes to work generating the antidotes. More research is needed how it works, but that it works, I think, is incontrovertible. And I know that the British royal family have been using homeopathy since the mid-19th century, and King Charles uses it. And apparently my review got on his desk, which is quite fun. So there are ways. This issue of the journal is full of great thinkers, philosophers, doctors, medical scientists who are rethinking what is healing and what is the role of consciousness in that. Now, I'd like to see this applied to peace work. I'd like our European peace mediation teams to be learned in all this and to talk to both sides of the conflicts to help them heal. Because these people are all traumatized, both on all sides. Ukrainians and the Russians are utterly traumatized.
When you say both sides, sorry to interrupt you,
No,
you mean people or elites?
Well, I'm talking the people, the soldiers and their commanders. The elites, unfortunately, are usually bubbled away from the battlefield, so they don't actually have to experience the suffering, and therefore they are a bit immune to the trauma. If they've deprogrammed their compassionate nature, as people like Putin have done, then they don't care. I mean, he's sending hundreds of thousands of Russians to their death. He doesn't care. I mean, he's importing North Koreans and so on. They need some kind of re-sensitization treatment, those kind of people. Netanyahu's another example, Trump. I mean, they have no compassion, it seems to me. Go for it.
There is another point I would like to raise.
Sure.
Which I found very interesting, because it's like in psychanalysis, there is a debate for healing. Do you have to understand the mechanism of your own life to be healed? Or most people say no. Just go in openness to something new to happen and not repeat the past. And I asked you about the way to put light on both sides' interests to understand why they are doing war, and you did not extend explanation on that. That means maybe also you don't think explanation is... I'm a French guy, so for me, you put light on conspirations, you may at least have a sense, you understand why they go on war.
Sure.
But maybe that's not the solution, because even if you understand why they go on war, it doesn't heal. And your path is different. You focus on healing.
Yeah, I'm coming at it as a healer, and yeah, I mean, we could fill the airwaves as they are endlessly and ad infinitum with damaged people saying how terrible the other people are, and it's all their fault, and that won't get us to the healing place.
Yeah.
That's what we need to be doing is working with the people that have already made some movement towards healing, self-healing, who are prepared to then talk to other people. So, for instance, in Israel, there are people in this wonderful Doctors Under Attack. There were Israeli Defense Force people speaking anonymously, saying how shocked they were at what's going on. And they were talking about how in some of the hospitals in Israel, where they bring doctors back, they're now doing torture against doctors, and Israeli doctors are being forced to, or willingly, taking part in that. And one of the doctors spoke out anonymously, saying this is against every Hippocratic oath, it's against the entire medical professional code of ethics, and yet people are doing it. And he was shocked, so he spoke out. And there are people beginning to speak out, and more of them are needed. So what we should be doing is getting people like that to talk to people who've also been traumatized and forced to, say, join Hamas. Because there were many normal Palestinians who didn't agree with the attacks on October the 7th and didn't want to go along with it, but were afraid to talk out. So yes, I hear what you're saying, and it's not easy, and it's not something we can do with our little resources. That's why we need a European Union mediation service with 10,000 staff, and 500 million budget per year, and offices in Venice, by the way, that's where I want it to be based, who can then do all this work on our behalf. I'm happy to go and help. And
I'm like the Russian in Vladivostok. I hate the European Union. If I
well,
see them,
Well,
you'll beat them up, yeah.
it's,
Sure.
it,
Well, welcome to the Philosophy Club. Nice to see
yes.
you. Yeah.
would it be possible to make people believe and understand that the past is exactly what it was? It's past.
Yeah.
We cannot do anything about it.
Well,
Uh,
that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Like France were invited during 2 wars. We were invited during the Second World War.
Yeah.
We've all been, but we're still friends with the Germans because we said these were soldiers that were led by a mad group of elites.
Mm.
It wasn't really
The masses of
the
the
masses
people.
of people that really wanted to hurt us so badly.
That
But
helps.
the only people that has not forgotten that are a few of the elite in Israel and also in Moscow. They've forgotten all about it.
Most people, but there's some elites holding on to this.
There is a
Yes.
guy in Moscow. His first name is Vladimir, and there's another guy in Washington D.C. Which first name is Mickey. No, it's not Mickey. It's Donald. And they both believe that they won the World War II. The Americans believe that they won both world wars.
Well,
And they
American
like to believe it.
education systems have some difficulty in keeping up to facts.
Yeah.
And,
And the
they're
same
being
goes on in
hacked.
Russia, we know that.
Well, obviously, Russian education, which is very sad because I met some brilliant Russian
So how can we
intellectuals.
turn that around? That is important, I think. It
Yes.
needs to be turned around. People need to understand that they can't go on doing. Somewhat paradoxically, I would say that actually more history in the curriculum is a good thing. The past is the past, but we should still study it. We should remember it, yes.
I'm with Professor Pollard, who founded the Institute of Historical Research at the University of London, where I did my PhD in history, because I believe history is part of the diagnosis of the illness of war. And a good doctor, before they treat the patient, they do a diagnosis, and they do a case history. Where did you first get these symptoms? Where were you when it happened? What were you doing at the time? You need to know the history of this illness, and that's why history is important. But then you take them to the present, which transcends all that pain, and you heal all that trauma. I believe it is possible, and I've met Jews, I've met Palestinians, I've met Muslims, I've met Russians, I've met Ukrainians. They're ready for that, going to the next level of healing, and that's what the Logic of Peace book will be about. Moving on, just briefly, because time is pressing here. We also have the work of Pierre Leroux. I wanted to bring him back. I'm reading this amazing book on humanity. It's in French. And Pierre says, and he was the local philosopher here in Boussac. He was the mayor of Boussac. He wrote all this down in the 19th century. He was a friend of George Sand, her boyfriend before Chopin. And he's a genius. I mean, read this book. It's never been translated into English. And he's talking about,
the human condition. What are we supposed to be doing as human beings? His view is quite profound. He says there's the biological world of nature. There's rocks, geology, mountains, rivers, amoebae. There's the whole life cycle going on, animals. And then there's the spiritual world. There are divine beings. There are ascended masters. There are saints, bodhisattvas. He was very interested in Buddhism. He was a Freemason and a Christian. And we humans here now are midway between these two kingdoms, the purely material world of organic life and the purely spiritual world of risen beings, bodhisattvas, angels, gods. And our work as humans is to mediate between the two. And to do that successfully, we have to stop killing each other. We have to devise a system in which nobody starves to death, like they're doing in Gaza. We have to devise a war-free system in which there's enough money and social security and help for people that are unemployed or homeless or ill. And he was one of the founders of socialism. He said, what we need to do for humanity is invent this new way of being, which is where society looks after each other. He called it socialism. And this is one of the key founding texts of socialism. He didn't agree with Karl Marx, who he knew, and George Sand knew, and they said, no, Karl's got it all wrong because he's a fanatical German materialist. He says we can do it just through mathematics and material equations, and the force of the labour value will equal so much, and then it'll all be recycled and everyone will be happy through the power of the state. And they said, Karl has gone mad. He's been drinking the wrong absinthe, because they all used to meet in cafes.
But where does the force came from? That's the question. You come back to the divine aspect.
Sure.
When you say the force of the labor.
Well, that was Marx's point, but he cut off the ethical spiritual world. I mean, he just cut all that off. And Pierre Leroux's point was, you can't build socialism if you do that, or you end up with a mad system without any ethics, which is what happened under Stalin and Lenin and Mao. And the residue of that is now in Putin, sort of reborn like a horror movie, Gothic horror movie. So anyway, do your work, folks, and read Pierre Leroux. And if anyone wants to translate him into English, I will help as an advisor. And also, the religion and maths, I just want to say, it's not I'm against mathematics. I want to see a divine mathematics. And that's why I've written the first ever book on religious mathematics. And I'm doing a commentary at the moment, carrying on with my commentary on the Gospels and the Quran. I've got to the Gospel of St. Mark, and it's fascinating. And I did the chapter on today. I was doing the commentary on Jesus at one point walks across the water to the boat. The disciples are all on the Sea of Galilee in a storm. And he walks across the water. And they're all shocked. And then he gets in the boat and said, don't worry, it's only me. Now, I make the point in the commentary, are we supposed to believe this literally? Is it possible that a great sage or rabbi like Jesus or Messiah, whatever you want to call him, could walk on the water? I've never seen that myself. I've walked on coals. I've been to coal walking workshops. I've never done a water walking workshop. I think it'd be fun to do it. So the point I made in my commentary is, as a rationalist, I want to think of other explanations, like maybe he was in the shallows, he was actually walking on the sand and it looked like he was on the waves, or on a sandbank, or, I mean, but then I also talk about levitation, because it is a fact that in the history of religious phenomena, there are people that have been known to levitate. And I came across this in Naples, when there's a famous instance when St. Thomas Aquinas was doing Mass. He stayed behind. He'd seen a religious vision, and he levitated. And a chap in the back of the church saw this and swore this is what happened. And it was written up, and it's factual. I've been to Naples and know where this happened. And the point I make in my commentary on Mark is, okay, so let's just for the moment think of levitation as real. Some people can do this. So what's the physics of it? How does that work? And I talk about David Bohm's theories of physics, that
There's an implicate order behind matter, the material world. And consciousness is somehow implicit in that. Physics hasn't got there yet. David Bohm was way ahead of his time, friend of Einstein, and Krishnamurti. Is it possible you could get to such a state of elevated consciousness that you could literally walk on water or levitate at will? I'm not going to rule that out. I can't do it, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. You know.
You must be very careful, because when you start to levitate, maybe you will have an accident. It's better
There is that
to
problem too.
gravitation.
Absolutely.
Stumble in the waves.
There was a famous Italian priest that used to levitate, the flying vicar, and he had to navigate because he was flying all around the church and stuff. This is
Padre Pio?
documented.
No.
No, not Pio, no, it's a slightly older one. So anyway, and what interests me is the mathematics of all this, how we can look at religious phenomena like walking on the water
And
scientifically.
there is a kind of contagion, because if I remember well in this gospel,
Yeah,
Jesus called Peter and said, "Come."
sure.
And he
My hand.
starts to,
Yes.
to levitate on the water, but he was not so self-confident, so he
Exactly.
started to go inside the water.
That's not in Mark,
Turned-
that's in
turned his head
Matthew's
away.
Gospel.
To see
Yeah.
where he was walking and fell in.
Yeah, yeah. We all that issue of doubt. That's given in detail in Matthew. Mark
Matthew,
gives a
okay.
much smaller version. Doesn't do the whole story.
I think it could be an explanation of belief.
And also,
faith.
the thing is that it's thought Mark wrote his gospel as a summary of Matthew in Rome under the guidance of Peter. So obviously Peter would have said, "No, leave that bit out. I don't want that in there." It makes sense. You see, I believe that Matthew's gospel was the first, and then Mark is an abridgment of it under the direction of Peter, which is like, that is an established position.
Or
Many
as the,
people-
as the fisherman on the beach said, "I don't care who your dad is. Don't walk around and scare the fish."
Yes. Right, okay, look, there's that. Let's move on now and do our periodic table. And we'll do a tarot of the gods as well. Because, yes. Why don't we move straight to the tarot of the gods, actually? Let's do a card. Because we talked about the divine level. Let's ask what the divine wants to bring down to us. I'll let you shuffle, and then if you hand them, like, let him choose one, and then vice versa, yeah? Then there's no cheating. Okay, and if you hold them out for him.
Today I think I'll choose this one. Like that.
Right.
Do you take one?
I won't do one, no. But I'll comment on these. What have you got?
King of Earth, Dagwa.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So we've got two druid cards today. So the first one, and we were talking about walking on the water. We've got the sea god, Manannán mac Lir, who was the Celtic god of the sea, like Poseidon or Neptune.
Neptune.
And he has a magic cup, imagine this one, which breaks when people lie and is restored when people tell the truth. And he gave it to the wisest king of Ireland, Cormac mac Airt of Tara, after wonderful adventures.
I remember you read it.
Yeah, which are written up in the book on the Tarot of the Gods. And I love Manannán mac Lir, not least because he raised Lugh in his court, which is in the Isle of Man, sacred island in the middle of the Irish Sea. I founded the Poseidon seminars when I lived in the Castle of the Muses, overlooking the Sea Loch in the energy of Manannán mac Lir, trying to get truth back into public discourse. And that's where I thought up the idea of making lying illegal in democratic assemblies, parliaments, and things, as they call it on Man.
You cannot do diplomacy anymore.
Diplomats can do what they have to do, but parliamentarians can't lie
Okay.
on the floor of the House. And just to say, I'm involved with the Liberal Democrat group. We're setting up a Liberal Democrat philosophy forum, Anglo-French, so I'm in touch with people in Britain and France, and we're going to have an annual meeting in the Senate in Paris, and also back in Parliament, where I ran 30 meetings. So I'm going to be proposing this idea, and we'll hope that we get there. Because one of the greatest Liberal politicians of the 19th century, Gladstone in Britain, famous intellectual who became Prime Minister, he set up a St Daniel's Library when he died. He left his books to the nation. And I think he was he would love this idea of truth is compulsory if you're going to be a politician. So that, I think this is a good card to have got. We talked about ethics and the weaponization of lies. And then we've got Dagda. He's like the big guy, the backup team. He's the king of the gods. And if you cause trouble, you have to see Dagda, who has a very big club. This is just a tiny one, right? He has this giant club. You can see him holding it. And he was fierce and strong. And he represents that sheer Celtic strength, which the Celts believe they were descended from Hercules. So the Celts are descended from Hercules, which is like strong. But he also had a cauldron of plenty, which could feed everyone, no matter how many people came to his palace or his wrath. They would not go hungry that night. He could feed them all because it was magically always replenished. To me, that's the Irish folk soul, because this is Ireland talking. That's why they want peace in Gaza. We want to give food to the people in Gaza. Do the Dagda thing, make peace. Then we can nourish and feed people. War doesn't feed anyone. It just feeds a few elites that feast on the bones of the victims. So I think it's good that we get Dagda, because the peace movement needs clout as well. And that's why it's good that they're having meetings in Colombia and stuff today. So that's great. And then I think what I will do, because the tape is going to run out very shortly, time-wise, I'll do the goddess card of the night, okay, to finish, in honour of Sophia, because these are beautiful cards. They're tarot dedicated to the divine feminine, okay. Do you want to hold them out and I'll choose one? Well, imagine Sophie's here. She should be here reading this. Bless you, darling. Right. Oh. Well, there we are. We have a Chinese one. Zhu Xuanjing, the mystic of peace. I am peace, says the text. And these cards are devised by Megan Watterson, who's an American goddess scholar, and who has written a wonderful book about Mary Magdalene. And Sophia, my daughter, took part in last year's Mary Magdalene conference on the 22nd of July. She can't come to this one, sadly, because it's coming up. And she's no longer informed, but maybe she can attend. I'm not sure if you're allowed to attend Zoom seminars from the other world. I expect they might get permission. So this is, let's see what her specificities are. But I'm getting an article of mine published in the Chinese Journal of Peace Studies, which is published from the University of Nanjing, on my take on the philosophical problems of the Middle East. So that's interesting. It's going to be published in a monograph as well. So China has some important contributions. And here she is, the mystic of peace. Zhu Xuanjing embodies the unwavering tranquility that exists deep beneath the turbulence of our daily thoughts. Zhu Xuanjing was a 12th century Taoist mystic and poet. The night before her son's birth, she had a dream that she was immersed in a red mist. This is a very auspicious sign in Chinese culture, and you can see in the card. The title given to her as a master was Free Human of Mystic Peace. The emphasis in her poetry was the power inherent in stillness. The secret of the receptive, she writes, must be sought in stillness. The way, or the Tao, is a spiritual practice of clearing the mind, so that when we take action, it isn't from the ego, it's from the source of life itself. The pedestal of awareness is steady as a boulder, Zhu taught. She said that meditation allows us to disengage from the surface drama that the ego can invite us into. She often refers to the moon in her poetry, because this was the symbol of the eternal sky, or the freedom we can reach if we stop looking at the light and shadows the moon casts and see the moon itself. Albert Einstein said that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So this card and this Taoist teacher, Zhao Zhuanjing, stands for that transcendence to another level of looking. And that's what we were talking about, in fact, earlier on, as part of the logic of peace. So I will be including Taoist logic in the book, The Logic of Peace, that I'm working on. So Zhu is a call for us to be still, to do nothing other than shift our awareness, come out of the current state of mind we're in, before making any moves or decisions. She reminds us that we only want to take action when what is moving us is the force of love at the heart of everything. I am peace. When my mind is clear, the way is clear. So that's a beautiful place to end tonight, I think. Any final comments or observations?
No, the only thing I've read lately is that Lagos seems to be sending people to Russia as well now. Laotians.
Oh, really? Laos?
Hmm.
Ah. Well, this is the trouble with the military types. They all want to get in on the action.
Yeah.
But it's not coming from a truly surrendered peace place, is
It's
it?
an old agreement from the Vietnam War that somebody just pulled out of his deck of agreements, I guess.
Right. Well, I've been watching a documentary on the history of the Vietnam War. It was a catastrophe. And actually one of my good friends, a druidess, Alex Spurway, is in Vietnam at the moment, sending me photographs as a tourist. It's a beautiful country. But, you know, so is Laos and Southeast Asia generally. It was a Buddha land. I would be more in favour of reactivating the Dharma and the wisdom. Oh, and by the way, can I just say a stop press? I learned from Le Monde, the biggest Buddhist temple in France, which was recently completed in Essonne, a place called Wat Pho, temple founded in open in 2023, the biggest Buddhist temple in France, just caught fire and burned down 3 days ago, which is a very sad thing. And I hope that they rebuild it. We need more Buddhist temples and less military exercises.
Yeah, fires is getting more and more widespread these days, unfortunately.
With the heat. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was in Buzak today to do some last minute shopping because I suddenly remember that it's July the 14th tomorrow.
Oh, so everything's shut.
Yeah.
Ah,
So we rushed to Buzak to get
Ah.
some stuff we needed, and I just caught a newspaper that down in La Pedia, is it?
La Dapper?
La Dapper.
Uh-huh.
It's been a huge fire.
oh no.
Yeah.
That's a
Yesterday.
local village too.
Yeah.
Caused by
on
what?
the fields, in the fields. Hundreds of acres, I'd say.
Oh no.
We went down there
Just
from
locally.
Buzak because Andy needed to get some of these inhaling fluid from the little cafe in the corner.
Okay.
So I read about that and I said, La Perriers.
Blimey.
I couldn't
So
see
the
anything.
fields are